Hello and welcome to episode 36 of the Adamola Bookman podcast. My name's Al Bond and I'm joined by my co-host, Johnny Coughlin. Hi, Johnny.
Buonasera, Al.
Look at that lovely stuff. And this week we're cementing our position as the Nuts magazine of football podcasts because this week we are concentrating solely on Totti. Lovely stuff.
Quasi sulla tiro, Totti si è liberato, pallonetto, Francesco Totti, un gol pazzesco.
But not that sort of Totti, folks. Francesco Totti, the great, literally one of the most beautiful men that ever lived. And in a spike of production value this week, my co-host John Coughlin has just attended this weekend's Rome derby. Johnny, tell me about it.
I just felt like I needed to kind of immerse myself in the history of the city in order to really understand Totti. Like, it was important that I knew that, we talked about Remus and Romulus, the twins, previously. It was important that I knew that they were the product of a congress between a goddess and a floating disembodied penis.
Is that right?
Yeah.
This doesn't come up in the book at all.
Not mentioned. Well, okay, you usually ask me, what do I know about Totti? And, beyond the broad strokes, I couldn't say a whole pile. I'm not sure I would have known necessarily that he was from Rome. Did you know he was himself a Roman?
That much I did know, Johnny, and I'll tell you for why. Because I remember a number of years ago, a book was released about stupid things that Totti says. It's basically a joke book. Romans have an accent which Italians mock, I guess. Italians would make jokes about Romans in the way that English people would make jokes about Irish people, or
What?
Americans would make jokes about Polish people. Johnny, I was trying to avoid saying it. I know it's wrong.
So Romans are supposed to be stupid, is what you're telling me.
Apparently, it's a funny accent to Italians.
What is it that Totti said in this dumb accent of his?
Oh, no, it was lame. I had a look at some of the examples in the joke book, and it really was just like a Roman decided to go to the sun, and they said it'd be too hot, and he said, "Don't worry, I'll go at night." It was that sort of level of thing. It wasn't actually dumb things Totti had said. So in my head, I thought Totti was a bit of a donut. I really didn't think he was very smart, but in fact, this was not the case, and I based it all on misreading an article about a joke book.
And now that you've immersed yourself in Francesco Totti, Gladiator, as the name of this book is, do you think he's dumb now?
No, I don't think he's dumb now. He's all right, isn't he?
Yeah, he's one thing I'd say for Totti, that something that struck me is he has a lot of nice things to say about people.
Yeah, I think that's true.
When people are mentioned, he'll say something. He really just seems to spend a lot of time saying how nice people are. And obviously, that reflects well on him. Doesn't necessarily make for the best book.
Well, I usually ask you this, Johnny. Who does he really love? Who does he love? Who keeps popping up that he loves all through the book?
Buffon?
Yeah, it's Buffon. I'm glad you got it. Man, he fucking loves Gigi Buffon, doesn't he? He just, everything is like in reference. Every like milestone in his career is like a reference to him. That was the last goal I scored against Buffon. That was the last goal I scored in open play against Buffon. Like all his career things, Buffon seems to be there. He has him in enormous respect.
The level of fame that he has maybe took me by surprise. Like, this guy is a god. He's like godlike status in Rome. So to be any way kind of level-headed and to live a life like that, bearing in mind that he was playing for Roma at the age of 17, I think it shows remarkable character, actually.
Yeah, and he seems absolutely true. You talk about one-man clubs. There's always the Gerrard one-man club, but he tried to leave, didn't he? He really tried to go to Chelsea at one point, and he couldn't get away. But whereas Totti is genuinely just turning down mega clubs left, right. Real Madrid, no thank you. He could earn more. No, he loves Rome. It's his destiny.
But that was the right decision for him. Definitely.
Well, it's beautiful because it contrasts with Letitia last week, whereas Letitia didn't want to leave just through basically sloth, right? He couldn't be bothered to try harder to be at a bigger club. Whereas Totti, he really is where he belongs. This is where he grew up supporting this team. He loved the people around it. You can see he loved the people around the club.
Yeah, and there are a couple of wild things there, just about his level of fame, which I guess Letizia probably didn't face quite as much in Southampton.
I mean, Southampton and Rome are comparable cities, aren't they? Very similar.
There's that story Totti tells. So they win the league, and like this guy just can't go out generally because he'll be mobbed immediately. And there's a couple of these stories, but they win the league, and he goes out a few nights later to this restaurant that he likes, and the word slips that he's in this restaurant, and then he says there was 5,000 people outside the restaurant. 5,000 people. I don't know what was the name of Letitia's club, Celebration Plaza. Do you reckon that was mobbed by 5,000 Saints fans anytime he was there?
I mean, it's just on a different level, isn't it? And I think I failed to realise at what level Italian football was in the 90s. It was so exponentially bigger than British football at that time. And again, just a nice little comparison there is I think last week we saw Letitia said at his peak, he was earning £4 grand a week at his peak.
Yeah.
Now, it says here in 1992, Totti, as not an actual official member of the squad, he was included in a bonus for UEFA Cup. And they handed him a check for 120 grand. He didn't even play a game in it. And he was offered a check for 120 grand just to like make him feel part of a group. Those weren't being handed around in English football in the early 90s, were they? Checks for 120 grand to 17-year-olds. It just wasn't happening. Football was huge in Italy then.
Okay, Alric, shall we get into this book?
Yes, we should. Yeah. So it is Gladiator by Francesco Totti.
I don't love the name, I must admit.
Yeah, it's a shame it's called Gladiator because he's got some pretty cool nicknames. Bimbo de Oro, Golden Boy, Pupone. What does that mean?
The pony?
The big baby. The big baby? What? Did I write that down right? Okay. And the best, I mean, I wish I had a nickname like this. Ottavo Re de Roma.
The something dream of Rome.
The 8th king of Rome.
Oh, that's so fucking good, isn't it?
But
what about his best nickname is surely Stella. Stella.
Or Il Capitano, which is literally the best nickname you could have in the whole world ever. Man, if I just walked in a room and everyone was like, Il Capitano, I'd be like, hey, I'd be pulling that Robert De Niro face, Il Capitano, lovely. My nickname was Ox, which is shit. I certainly wouldn't call my autobiography that. There's a kid at school who I'm not going to name who really, really tried to make Igor happen for me. Fuck you, Ed Ross. Like, all right.
Okay, so he's from Rome. Okay, and
his mum was Lazio.
His mum was a Laziola,
which means fascist, and Roma. No, but Lazio has the right wing support, and traditionally Roma has the left wing support. Although broadly at one point he tries to like disown that, doesn't he? He's like, "Oh, when I was a kid, it was never about politics, but now it is."
Exactly. But here's a fun fact for you, Al. So the teams of the north, the famous teams of the north, U of N, the two Milans, were dominant in Italian football in the first half of the 20th century. And it was Mussolini and his fascists decided that Rome should have a stronger team. So what they did is they took the existing teams of Rome and they put them all together, with the exception of Lazio, who refused to be part of this conglomeration, I suppose. The founder, this guy, Italo Fossi, he was a fascist official. He was an official of Roma's government. Of Mussolini's government. So while, yes, Lazio are the right-wing fascist team, Roma have an interesting origin story themselves. There you go.
No kidding. But it says they're 97 years old. So they were founded and then they were sort of added onto in the subsequent time.
They were combined in, I think it was in the 30s, or is that 30? Is that 90 years ago? Or maybe
Oh,
they're
yeah, I suppose it is. Yeah, I suppose it is.
yeah, Lazio are older.
Anyway, as a child, he had another nickname given to his mother as the chosen one because he was kissed by Pope Jean Paul II.
Yeah, that
I
was
guess if
nice.
you live in Rome, that's much more likely to happen though than if you live where I grew up. I never got kissed by Jean Paul II, or indeed any pope.
Yeah, when I was growing up, there was a lot of pictures of John Paul II around because he visited Ireland, and people were obsessed with that guy. So yeah, if you got a kiss from that Pope, that would have been that would have been some serious currency on the streets of Ireland in the '80s and the '90s.
Yeah, I mean, he was even as a child, he was being hit up. He was hit up as a 12-year-old by an aide for Berlusconi, who offered him hundreds of thousands of euros, or I guess it was lira at the time, to join AC Milan as a 12-year-old. So he was on the radar of Silvio Berlusconi and the Pope as a child. Like, yeah, this kid, what a boy.
Yeah, well, you don't become the eighth king of Rome out of nothing, eh?
No, you don't. And hey, Johnny, let me just ask you. He said a big thing of his childhood was watching Captain Tsubasa. And he said every footballer he knew watched Captain Tsubasa. Now, Captain Tsubasa is like a Japanese anime about a football player. Had
Okay,
you ever heard of it?
negative.
No, I had neither. But since I've read about it, I can't get away from it. Like, genuinely, I think this was huge everywhere in the world apart from where we come from, Johnny. I think all the kids
Really?
were watching this Captain Tsubasa. Yeah, it's massive.
So when you say you can't get away from it,
I've noticed the name Captain Tsubasa 3 times since I read it in the book. There was something about a South American footballer. It's huge in South America, apparently, this Captain Tsubasa. Maybe not necessarily now, but at the time,
hmm.
kids all over the world were watching this Japanese anime about a soccer player.
But you know what that's called, Al? What you have just experienced.
There's a word, Johnny, but I don't know what it is.
That's the Bader Meinhof phenomenon.
Oh, yeah, I have heard of that. Yeah.
You were hearing about Captain Tsubasa all the bloody time, but it just didn't land, you know?
Yeah, maybe you're right, Johnny. Yeah, I mean, I recognised him when I looked him up. So, yeah, hit up by Berlusconi, age 12. And he said he nearly went to AC Milan because he had a technical passion for AC Milan.
Hmm.
He was passionate about the technicality that those wonderful AC Milan players of the late 80s had. But his sentimental passion was solely for Roma.
Can I just say, just to stop you here now, um, how good was Totti in your mind before you read this book?
No, I really didn't know how good he was. I think, in fairness, that's because his actual record for the Italian national team was pretty modest. 52 caps and 9 goals, I think.
Mm.
And because he was playing for Roma, the players I was most familiar with in the late 90s, early 2000s were playing Champions League football, frankly. That's who I was watching, right? How often did I watch Roma in the Champions League around that period? And there's only one time I can tell you with any real significance, and that's when they got absolutely battered by United in that thrilling performance, where apparently a Roma defender begged Ronaldo to stop running at him, or at least the legend goes.
I guess I would have. I I knew he was a one club Roma legend, but maybe, yeah, not a Letizia character exactly. But I would have said he was like, I don't know, who's an equivalent like, because what we are talking about is a Gerrard and a kind of Alan Shearer, like that kind of level player here, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like
Yeah,
a
an
hometown
elite
hero here.
player. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I fully grasped that. And had you asked me who was, better player between Perlo and Totti, even though they played in different positions, I would have said it was probably Perlo, but now I'm not so sure, eh?
No, I'm not so sure because we say that 250 goals from 600 games, but he's never playing outright striker there. He's always the guy behind the striker in the space. So it really is an astonishing goal scoring record.
I looked at a few of his goals as well. Some tasty enough little strikes in there.
Yeah, I had a look at some of his goals. There really are some wonderful moments there. The thing is, His name is just absolute dynamite, isn't it? Francesco Totti. You're gonna notice that name. I've always had a soft spot for Roma because of their beautiful, beautiful football shirt. It is the nicest football shirt among elite clubs. Tell me a nicer shirt amongst elite clubs.
The Sampdoria one is always kind of talked about as the nicest shirt, isn't it?
Oh, the blue? No, absolutely not. No, it's not. Next. Yeah, so his name is Francesco Totti. He plays for Roma in their beautiful shirt. Oh, and he's so good looking. He's a good looking man, isn't he, Johnny? He's a
He,
beautiful man.
he is a handsome man.
He is. I was like saying to my wife, I was like, oh, well, take a look at this. I'm always saying, telling my wife, footballers are good looking, and she's always telling me they're not. But she did agree. She's like, oh, you're like a rugged man. I was like, what are you talking about, rugged? He's just beautiful. But I guess he is a bit rugged as well.
He's your type, according to your wife.
He absolutely is my type. Oh, look at that. Long hair, the tan, that shirt. Oh, he's just beautiful.
But okay, so he played for some other like kind of club scrum. There's a third club in Rome called Loggiano, and he played there briefly. But he went to Roma very young. That was it, really. There, he was there forever. He played until he 40 when he retired?
Yeah, he was 40. I mean, yeah, he got a full 25 years at his club. So basically, that's the book. Anyway, so I give it 4 out of 5 floating penises. No, yeah, he signed very young. His life was all football. He seemed like he was quite an innocent young fellow, but you never really know.
Did you think he brought those girls into the hotel room the night before the game when Capello came looking for him?
Yes, I think he probably did, but he got
Okay.
away with it, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Capello is a repeated figure of fun, isn't he, in all these books? There's always someone laughing at Capello at some point, whether it be English or Italian, and yet he's an absolutely astonishingly good manager.
Yeah, Capello he's a bit of a parody of himself or something, isn't he?
Yeah, that's it. He's won so much. He's done so much for the game, and he ends up with basically David Bentley and Jimmy Bullard shouting "Postman Pat" at him in a corridor. It just seems very undignified. And this started earlier with, well, we'll get on to him. In fact, it's my favourite chapter is the Antonio Cassano chapter. Antonio Cassano really gets stuck into him.
Yeah, okay. Well, so like he kind of played under various managers, but like, there is this kind of Mark Noble or Matt Letizia quality to the book that, with the exception of the year they won the league, it all kind of melds into one. So I guess we don't have to go through all of that because, who are these guys really to me? Like Rudy Garcia and Zeman, like they don't really mean much to me. So maybe it's just more interesting to talk about the bits of the book that were fun.
Well, that's right. I mean, basically, apart from the 2000 title win, basically they just bounce around between 10th and second place for the entirety of his career.
They seem to finish second every fucking year, poor devil.
But always convincingly second as well.
Always never putting up a fight or anything.
He loves to be winter champion, but yeah, winter champion. What the fuck is that? It means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. We're winter champions. Where's your trophy? No.
When he was 17, he was playing for Roma, and he was captain of Roma by the time he played for Italy. So he was captain of Roma at the age of 22 and captain of Roma for the next 18 years. Essentially, his lifetime as captain of Roma would have made him an adult. He was captain of Roma that long. It's quite remarkable.
Well, it is remarkable. And we talked about his finances as well. I mean, this kid was a hell of a prospect. He signed for £5 a week when he was 17. When he was 17 in the 90s. I mean, they knew this kid was going to be the best. I just didn't know that he was that much of a natural. Apparently, when he played with his youth team players, everyone was like, oh, this kid is way better than everybody else. Quickly, yeah, so he did win the title. This was the highlight, and he says the highlight of his career, even better than winning the World Cup in 2000, 2001. He won the Scudetto, and he won it because Capello bought Batistuta. Johnny, pictures of Batistuta and Totti in that Roma kit. Oh, blimey, I'm rubbing my thighs now. Batistuta is the best footballer that ever walked the earth. He's my favourite. I think it just gets confirmed again and again. He played through the pain. Totti says he knew Batistuta was paid more, but he didn't care. It was right because Batistuta was the best. God, he was magnificent.
Yeah, that is pretty cool, isn't it? They were playing under Capello, as you said. They had a terrible start to the year. It was 2001, right? Because it was the summer before 9/11 that they won the league. And they had a terrible start to the season. They were dumped out of the cup by Atalanta, and the ultras from the Curva Sud, that's the south stand, Al, they came and they dumped fish and eggs at the training ground. And this was because they were so outraged at the performance of the team. But let me tell you, Al, the next time they were delivering fish to Trigoria, the training ground, it was not rotten fish. It was beautiful cuts of fish that they were delivering as a reward to their beloved players of Roma.
I mean, do you think Romans just drive around in their cars with some fish and eggs in case there's a bad result? It's like, oh, fucking, here we go, right? Off to the training ground.
Well, it was cartloads of carrots when they lost 7-1 to United because they were calling them rabbits to mean that they were cowards. So it's not just that they do the same thing every time. They actually sit down and think about it. Maybe it's kind of seasonal, They go with whatever's in the market.
Well, I can tell you in America, Johnny, no one could afford to throw eggs at people at the moment. Like, egg prices through the roof, Johnny. Oh, my God.
Just to say, because we've talked about it so much, like I've mentioned so many times before, that oftentimes I find when matches don't really come alive, title run-ins they're hard to make them come alive in the book. But he did 2 chapters on this league win, and I really got into it. I thought it was a lot of fun. You could tell there was just so much pressure on them. Lazio had won the league the year before. Roma's not a successful city for football compared to the north, because all of the leagues go to Milan and to the cities of Milan and to Turin, Juventus. So I really felt that. I really felt that there was a lot of pressure on them. It was really quite exciting, I thought. I enjoyed all of that.
Yeah, I did too. It's structured quite well, the book, in as much they don't jump around chronologically. For that, there are 2 chapters, as you say, for the title win, and for his whole international career, that is just bunched up into 2 or 3 chapters, which is so much more accessible. Well done.
Helps from a narrative point of view that his last game for Italy was the World Cup final in 2006. But going back to what you're saying about Italians making fun of Romans, so he says that, there's these detached, like bloodless Northerners make fun of Romans for their passion around football. It's just funny to think, because obviously we think of Italians as all being passionate, right? But obviously they have a more nuanced view of themselves inside the country. But yeah, he says that it's a bit of a joke to the rest of Italy how much Rome and Roma celebrated that win. They celebrated for the whole summer. Yeah, and as you say, he holds it dearer to his heart, that win, than the World Cup win. And it does feel like he should have won more leagues just on the basis of how many times they came second. Yeah,
and some of the players he played alongside as well. There's some real big names that played for Roma down the years.
Yeah, well, there's none more exciting than that Batistuta one, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely sexy. So they had at one point up front Montella, Batistuta, Del Vecchio, and Totti.
Yeah.
Wow. You see, that's it. To me, as a kid watching these teams, basically, if you had a long Italian name and you had long hair and a tan, I thought you were absolutely brilliant at football. That's all it took. I mean, I remember seeing like Juventus striding out against Man United back in the 90s, just like, look at those lads with their long hair and their tans. They are definitely better than Paul Scholes. And they did prove to be, on the whole.
Yeah, they did. There was Capello is an interesting character, right? Totti says at one stage when they lost the year they won the league, they lost 3-2 to Milan in the San Siro, and Capello came in and told the players, "I'm going to go and do my press conference now. I'm going to tell the press that you're terrible, that you're cowards, and that you're not going to win the league."
But that was genius, wasn't it? Like, take all the pressure off the players there by weirdly putting it all on them. He thought it was a good idea, didn't he? Toddy liked that.
Can I ask you a question? Did you think, for all of his successes and his undeniable talent, do you think that maybe he didn't bring it enough on the very, very big occasions, Totti?
Yeah, I think absolutely you could accuse him of that.
Yeah.
I think that's why he didn't really have that. I didn't have that relationship with him because I never really saw him. His greatest moments were all reserved for the Italian league, I think.
Yeah, he got taken off in the 60 minute of that World Cup final, and Lippi took him into halftime. He loves Lippi, doesn't he? He took him into the bathroom and gave him a tongue lashing there, and then took him off a few minutes later. I was telling him he was not doing enough, but I did wonder if maybe if they kept finishing second all the time, and in a couple of these big games he was not really present. I did wonder to what extent that there's a hint of that about him.
Yeah, I think there's a hint that maybe he got too worked up in the big moments because there are some. He lashes out at times, doesn't he? Sometimes it seems fairly inexplicable for someone who comes across as fairly level-headed most of the time. But I think the big occasions got to him when he let his standard slip. Man, they really did slip.
Well, that's the Roman in him.
Yeah, he can't fight his heritage. Yeah, so going back to the Scudetto win, yeah, as I say, this was his very highlight of his career. He had Nakata playing alongside him. That was nice. And he said amongst the celebrations, Nakata was sat in the corner of a room reading a book. And he describes him as a Martian.
I was in Rome and I was reading this book. So I was pretty immersed in the whole thing. It was pretty exciting. And just, he does paint a good picture of just how wild Rome is. And he says that for some players and for some managers, Rome is just too much. You're just under an incredible spotlight all of the time. And a lot of people can't handle it. But he says when they won the Scudetto, because they should have won it earlier. But again, there's this kind of lingering sense that maybe they struggled to get things over the line. So they should have won it away from home, but they ended up winning it in Stadio Olimpico, which was better in the end, obviously, because these guys love Rome. But he says it took him 50 minutes to get off the field, and he'd been stripped down to his boxers. So he's just strolling around, and then, as you say, so he finally gets in, and people are helping him get into the changing room at the very end. And he comes in, and it's an absolute scene of pandemonium. And there's Nakata in the corner just reading his book. The other thing that's nice is, yeah, he got on his moped, put on his helmet, and he just drove around Rome amongst all of the madness. That's kind of cool, isn't it?
Yeah, that is great, isn't it? Because total anonymity when you're on your moped. Although surely his insurance didn't allow him to ride around on a moped. Surely, as a footballer on that money, there's a thing in your contract about you're not allowed to go on mopeds. My God.
This is when Totti and goes to this restaurant that gets besieged by all the people. And the other part of that story is that the restaurant owner told him to hop over the wall. So himself and another couple of players who were with him, they had to escape out the back of a friary. And they were walking through the friary and they got set upon by a monk. And the monk is like, "What are you doing in here?" And Toddy's thinking, well, the whole city knows me, but is this monk going to know me? He's like, "Oh, sorry, we're just coming from the restaurant." And the monk was like, "Wait, are you Toddy?" He's like, "Yes." There was a couple of nice little charming moments in the book like that, which I enjoyed.
It's just, I don't know. That's it. It's so good, isn't it? To be king of Southampton, who cares? But to be king of Rome, yes, please.
But yeah, and the king of Rome thing is, and just as a little wrinkle in the story, this particular friary is called the Priory of the Knights of Malta, and it's on the Aventine Hill in Rome. But it's famous because there's a door there, and if you look through the keyhole, it frames the dome of St. Peter's Basilica. Again, you don't get that in Southampton, do you?
You certainly don't. Yeah, that's pretty
It's just
sexist of
like
it.
Rome is just so fucking cool. I really thought it was amazing.
Yeah, he asserts in the book that Rome is the most beautiful city in the world.
At this point, Francesco Totti has won the league. He's done all of these things. Captain of Roma. He's still living with his parents.
Isn't that an Italian thing, though? Isn't that like fairly accepted that just grown
You stay,
men live with their parents and we all meant to go, that's normal and good?
you stay with your mother until you move in with your wife. But yeah, okay, Cassano, that Castano stuff was brilliant, wasn't it?
Okay, and again, this is another player. I was familiar with him. I can picture him in my head. I knew he was quite good. I know he played for some big teams, but I didn't realize how good he was meant to be, right? This is Italy's Gaza, isn't it? I think.
That's exactly what I thought.
Yeah, Italy's Gaza. Like he moved. Where did he come from? Do you remember?
He came from Barry. He's from Barry.
And that's Southern as well, right?
That's the heel of the boot, I think.
Okay, great. So yeah, so he came to Roma following their Scudetto win, and I also noticed he moved into a house with a friend called Nicola, who was just kind of like who was there to hold his hand and stuff in his new environment. And I guess this is like he's like a Jimmy Five Bellies character, right?
Yeah, and as Toddy says, these kinds of characters are not that rare in football. You know, these guys get a lot of money and they just bring somebody from home. Like this is like, I guess, his entourage, right?
Yeah, I think I saw Steven Gerrard's got one, and he's had him since he was 17. Like this guy's just lived with him. He lives in the house with Steven Gerrard and his wife, his mate, and has done forever.
Just he's his footman.
They never grow up, do they? Apparently, I got to this. I read this in an article about Steven Gerrard. Steven Gerrard won't talk to people outside of his class. So if you're a middle class fella, he'll just blank you. Good day to you, sir. Good day. Yeah, and so he needs this fella around. He needs another working class lad around with him to talk to at all times. But anyway, so Cassano had this character called Nicola. But despite that, Cassano moves in to Totti's house with his mum and his dad. It's like school. It's like, oh, Cassano's mum and dad are divorcing. Can he come and stay with us for a bit? Like, it's like, sure, but don't play Xbox till 3 a.m. Well, it sounds like they were playing Xbox till 3 a.m.
It sounds exactly like they were doing that. And Toddy says that Cassano is the most talented footballer he's ever played with, just to put that in there because it's pretty significant. It sounds like he was amazing.
Yeah, I think his just career got ruined by injuries, right? Because, yeah, he went to Real Madrid. He got every move. He could have gone anywhere in the world.
But it also sounds like he's a total dick.
Well, that's it, isn't it? It's unfortunate. I mean, there's sides of him. Well, he's just got no filter, has he, Cassano? I mean, it all turned sour at Chez Totti when Cassano accuses the maid of stealing his check for 100 grand. Totti's mother and Francesco Totti defend the maid, but he loses his mind. He gets kicked out of the house, and it turns out he dropped it down the side of his car. I think we all know someone a bit like that, don't we? It's very familiar. Like, yeah. And he said he had no filter. He'd be at the training camp, and Sensi, is that the name of the owner of Roma?
Yeah, yeah.
Sensi would be coming along and be going off to use like some of the facilities. And what's it? I've got it written down.
Like Sensi's in his 80s or something at this stage, isn't he? He's in the pool.
So that's it. So Cassano shouts out, "Old paralytic, where are you going?" This is for players. And Sensi was laughing his head off. But then on another occasion, they're all in the pool. Cassano shouts at Sensi, "Ugly miser, spend your money on superstars instead of these mediocre players." But that is not met so well. Not so funny. Ugly miser. I mean, I wonder what the translation for that is. Just skips off the tongue. It's good though, isn't it? Ugly miser.
Let's find out what it is.
Yeah, and he also accuses Capello. He says, "Ugly cripple, you only won the Scudetto because of Totti and Batistuta." And again, Capello doesn't like that, would you believe?
Ugly miser is not a great insult in English, is it? Do you think bruto avaro is a good insult?
Oh, that sounds awful.
Cassano, all the players hated him other than Totti because, yeah, he's always just going around saying in training, "You guys are shit. What are you doing playing in Serie A when you control the ball like that?" And Totti defends him. Totti says he's just kind of a fella who has no filter, as you say. But the only reason fellas like that get away with anything is because he's obviously absolutely, totally, and utterly gifted. And that's the only way he was let away with anything in the first place.
They say that with Roy Keane, eh? When he joined Man United, he'd like fucking firing a ball to like Steve Bruce, and if Steve Bruce sort of miscontrolled it, there'd be like 20-year-old Keano sneering at him like you're shit at football. And
Yeah,
yeah,
like Rooney with the Everton players, right?
yeah, that's it, really. Yeah, I looked up to them forever, and then I played with them, and I thought they're all shit.
Yeah. Yeah, so he sounds like a total asshole, and then he went to Real Madrid, and it didn't work out for him, right? It's like you say, injuries, but it sounds like he was also a prick. But he and Totti really connected on a personal level, but also on the pitch. Totti said it was like they were kind of a hive mind or something or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. Even when they fell out, they still had that connection on the pitch. Yeah, he just seems like one of those wasted opportunities. Casano could have been absolutely incredible, whereas really he's just a bit of a footnote now in Italian football, isn't he?
But I thought that chapter on him was interesting, both because Totti manages to talk in a kind of candid way about a fella, which is very rare in any of these books. I thought it was really interesting, really insightful, and then at the same time, because honestly, Totti does have a certain classiness about him. He managed to do it in a way that was also somewhat, I don't know, it wasn't trashy. It was kind of respectful almost, you know.
Yeah, let's talk about how classy is Totti is. He married his wife, Hilary, and that was broadcast live on Sky Television, although he
Hmm.
did donate it to charity. And he has a daughter called Chanel.
Yeah, classy.
Classy, yeah. And he's got another kid called Prada and another kid. No.
Do you know, I was actually talking to Jenny, my wife, about this. So Toddy's just sitting at home one day watching television, and a woman comes on the television. He says, I'm going to go out with that woman. And then he does. She has a boyfriend, doesn't matter. He just goes ahead and goes out with her anyway and marries her.
Well, that's the story of Beckham as well, isn't it? Beckham saw Posh Spice on the TV and said, "That's the girl I'm going to marry," or at
Oh,
least
go
that's
on.
what they say now. He was probably going, "I'm going to get into that baby," but then it's like, oh well, Posh
Yeah,
worked out fine. I was a posh man at the time. I was. She was my number one.
you heard it here first on the Adam the Bookman podcast. Albon's favorite Spice Girl was always posh.
It always was. Hilary's wife plays a huge part in the book. They're divorced now, though. I'm sorry to tell you, Johnny.
Oh, I didn't know
They're
that.
divorced. Yeah, no. And after he found evidence of her infidelity. Oh dear.
Oh my God, can you imagine? He could have that person killed so quickly.
Well, who the fuck is she fucking that's better than Totti? I mean, honestly, I mean, like, I don't know. He's the king of fucking Rome. There he is. Look, king of Rome. No, no. But fair enough. Yeah, no longer married. I'm sure he's not too lonely.
Oh yeah, so just on this Hilary, he got with her, and then there was a kiss and tell story about him. There's a couple of kiss and tell stories, it seems, but this it broke in the media. This woman who claimed she'd had an affair with Totti after he'd gotten with Hilary, and then a journalist said he had more details and photographs, and Totti said it wasn't true, but he did pay the journalist.
No, Johnny, no, no. He didn't pay the journalist. His friends paid the journalist, and he only found out after. And he
Oh,
was annoyed about that. Oh, they shouldn't have done it because, in fact, there was no real evidence. But he did pay her off, but he had no idea about it and
well,
was
I'm
annoyed.
happy. I'm happy he cleared that up for me.
Yeah, so, yeah, Francesco Totti, innocent man, according to
Who's the
Francesco Totti.
who is Vito? Vito's just his Jimmy Five Bellies, an older
Yeah,
man who's just there all the time for him.
yeah, he does that at all. Yeah, and he goes, at one point, I actually pressed on my Kindle to say Vito because he kept popping up and it said Vito. I forgot to mention his last name is Scalia, and that's all I got. Yeah, Vito Scalia. That's his boy running around doing his dirty work.
But he's on the staff of Roma. He's like a coach, but also again his footman.
Yeah, I guess that's when you're the king, right? You can do what you like.
So
I'm
here's
taking
a
this lad. I'm taking him. Oh, Vito, he's coming with me, and he's
yeah,
going to be
no, but
paying off sex scandals for me. That's fine, right?
no man is a hero to their valet. What do you think Vito thinks of Francesco?
Well, I want to read that book. I want to read the Vito Scalia book. I want to read the Nicola book about Antonio Cassano. I want to read the Jimmy Five Bellies book about Gaza. They're the
Yeah,
books that should be getting
yeah,
written.
yeah. They are the books that should be getting written. Okay, shall we talk about the World Cup in 2006? Because we've done this before, and I I enjoyed it, but I don't think that there was anything particularly new or novel in there, was there?
No, there wasn't. Yeah, there's just a couple of things about international football I want to talk about. And the first one's not the World Cup. It's the Christian Poulsen incident.
Yeah. Did you know about that? That he spat on Poulsen?
He didn't spit on Poulsen.
Is that what it was
I'm gonna
Vito?
read. I'm gonna
It was
read. I'm gonna read the quote here. So we're talking about a game against Denmark of the European Championships in Portugal. It finished 0-0.
2004, right?
Yeah, 2004. Of that game, played in Glimmerish, I remember the excruciating heat, my feet being almost on fire and little else. It was already disappearing from my memory when, the next day, Vito Scala, who had added the national team to his work at Roma, I bet he had, came into my room and asked me bluntly if I'd spat at Christian Poulsen on the pitch. What? Are you nuts? I answered. Since there was still doubt etched on his face, I told him to go to hell, but not without adding that no, I hadn't spat at anyone. The very thought of it made me sick, and that he should know better. There are certain things I don't do. Eh, there seems to be a video, he murmured. And I was thrilled because I was absolutely certain that I hadn't spat at anyone. Let me see it, I say. And in the meantime, the head of the Azori delegation, Innocenzo Mazzini, the director of communications, Antonello Valentini, and other directors had arrived too, all with puzzled expressions that gave me a very bad feeling. The video was on a Danish television channel's website. It was them who had had a camera following me for the entire game, who had discovered what had happened. I clicked play, and I saw it. Spitting at Paulson is the episode in my life that I'm most ashamed of. Not in my sporting life, my entire life. The whole thing. I was so ashamed of it that I immediately removed it from my mind. That's what I do when I'm ashamed of that. If it hadn't been for the video, I would have denied having spat at him until the end of my days, and I wouldn't have done it in absolute good faith, convinced I was telling the truth. Watching and rewatching the clip, there was no doubt, and I felt like I'd been hit by a train. Yeah, I guess I could go on. He really didn't think he did it, but he did do it. He
I just
definitely
think
did it. I felt bad because I still don't understand how I'd been capable of doing something so vulgar and disgusting. Let's be clear. I must have suffered millions of fouls in my career, and as long as I didn't put my health in danger, I was put up with them. No one ever spat at me, however. If they had, I would have bitten their head off, because the very idea of it makes me sick to my stomach. Spitting in football, Johnny, overrated, right? I mean, it's not nice, but I would rather someone spat at me than tried to break my leg. Like, who would you rather be, Johnny? Christian Poulsen or Mario Balotelli on the wrong end of Totti's bad temper? Because I know who I'd rather be.
yeah, that he gives Balotelli a bad old kick.
I just think let it go a bit, a bit of a spit. All right, you were annoyed, and then you see, he's like, oh, I'd never do anything so disgusting. Christian Poulsen was an awful character, a provocateur who, while the ball is nowhere near you, didn't stop pinching you, hitting you in the sides with little punches, getting you in your toes to make his studs felt. In short, someone who used the entire weaponry of the mediocre marker. What's more, he told you to keep quiet when you told him, do it when we're fighting the ball if you've got courage. And the more you told him where to go, the more he laughed and toyed with you. Yeah, you did spit him, didn't you? And you meant to do it because you hated him so much.
I'm just thinking about poor Vito coming in and having to say this to Totti. And Totti,
No,
like,
are you crazy? Go to hell.
he's
There's
scurrying out
video.
of the room as Totti Rain spits down on him.
Are you mad? Are you mad, man? I would never do such a thing. It's disgusting. Oh, I did do it. No, it's disgusting. But he is an awful man. An awful man,
He
though.
does
So,
pinch. He does pinch. Yeah. And then there was a biscotto between Sweden and Denmark to put them out. Do you know what a biscotto is? Oh,
That is a match where the result suits both parties, right?
nice
I
little
remember
expression.
watching that game at the time and being delighted that Italy had been ejected from the World Cup. I never cared for Italy. I don't know why.
Totti's international career up until 2006 was pretty crap. They lost in the finals in 2000 to France in the Euros to a Trezeguet golden goal. Then he was sent off for a dive against South Korea in 2002 when South Korea kept getting fairly dubious passes to each round of the World Cup. And then there was that Paulson incident that he got sent off for in 2000. No, sorry, he wasn't sent off, but he got suspended for that in 2004 and they went out. So then he retired from Italy after 2006 when he was still only 30. But he said Lippi was the most important coach around. That's a quote. But then he broke his leg in the February before the World Cup, an injury that usually takes 7 months to heal. But on top of being kissed by the Pope, being on the radar of Berlusconi, Totti has superhuman Wolverine-esque healing powers, which doctors have always remarked upon. And he was back in time. He was back running in 2 months. He was back training in 2 months for an injury that takes most people 7 months to heal. This guy's got something going on, all right.
Yeah, I guess that's part of it, though. Being a good healer is part of it. I mean, maybe he does heal better than everyone. He didn't drink and stuff, So that might be part of it. He led a fairly healthy lifestyle all the time. But he did get back, didn't he? He did get back.
Yeah, he got back and they won. They won the World Cup. That was a fun World Cup. I looked at the highlights of that game again, and Materazzi really was quite central to that game. He gave away a penalty, which Zidane duly dispatched off the crossbar, which was pretty nice. He then scored a goal, a header, nice header. He then got Zidane sent off for whatever it was he said about his mother. And then he scored the second penalty in the final with the whole crowd booing him. It's pretty spicy stuff, really.
Yeah. He's a legend of the game, isn't he, Materazzi, basically, despite being a pretty mediocre footballer and only playing because, was it Nesta was injured? Yeah, Nesta got injured, right?
Nesta was injured, yeah.
People sort of talk about that as the Zidane final, but really, that was the Materazzi final, wasn't it?
Absolutely. And the guy Grosso who scored the winning penalty, and he scored a goal. He scored a goal against Germany as well. He was kind of often in World Cups. There's one of these characters who's not, the main players who really has their moment in the sun. But yeah, those two. But Materazzi absolutely in the final.
Yeah, Grosso was one of those. You never heard of him before, and I don't think I ever heard of him after.
Grosso's wife pregnant in the stands. Quite a time for Grosso, wasn't it?
It was a time for Grosso.
Yeah. Anyway, that's it. Oh, the other thing that happened, of course, during the World Cup was that Gianluca Pessotto jumped out of the window at the Juventus headquarters. Jesus Christ.
Yes, that was a story I didn't know about. Yeah, he attempted to commit suicide. I don't like to make light from jumping from a second floor window. Come on. Oh, it's like me standing on a step, like when I'm angry. I'll do it. Don't try and stop me. I'll do it. I'm standing on a chair. But yeah, it's no, I don't mean to make light. It's just, yeah, terrible story. But yeah, this was all to do with the Juventus Calciopoli scandal. And it was
Yeah.
also interesting that when they met up, they said none of the Italian squad made reference to it. None of them
Made fun of
mocked
it, yeah.
Del Piero or Buffon or anything. They just kept quiet because they needed the team spiritness.
Yeah, and at the end, when they win the World Cup and they go back, and obviously all the garlands are being thrown at their feet, but they were saying there was a bit of ill will because there had been some of the politicians were saying that these Juve guys shouldn't be going to the World Cup. They shouldn't be representing Italy. This kind of stuff. So there was an interesting backstory around that whole Italy win.
Italy, by the way, had an incredibly easy ride to the final, didn't they? They really did. They had to play Germany, but the rest of it was pretty simple. They avoided all the difficult teams. Just a little thing, just an interesting Italian perspective about Australian sporting culture. So Italy have a penalty against Australia, and Totti's taking the penalty. The Australians' protests, I understood them. They'd been forced into conceding the penalty were dwindling. And since they have an Anglo Saxon sporting culture, none of them thought to put me off in any way, to block me off, to say something unpleasant to me. I kept walking, looking at Mark Schwarzer. So Italians think Australians are really good sports. You see, from an English perspective, that is not what I think about Australian sportsmen. Like, literally, the Australian cricket team are the worst people in the whole world that have ever lived. I mean, they are the epitome of everything that's evil in sports.
Just in terms of how it finishes, he had played under Spalletti earlier in his career and really liked Spalletti. And Spalletti sounds like a bit of a character, running around the training ground with no clothes on, that kind of thing. But he came back, and Spalletti had obviously been tasked with getting rid of Totti. And he was just a bit of a shit to Totti all throughout, and Totti did eventually leave, and Spalletti left shortly afterwards. But it was a sour note, I think, that he went out on, really. And he finished, he was 40 years old when he finished. And by that stage, he was in his last season, he was only playing like 5 minutes at a time.
For a bit of context, it was Spalletti's second spell at the club, and he'd done quite well first time. But when he left, Spalletti felt that Totti could have spoken up for him and maybe saved his job. So apparently there was a bit of rancor on Spalletti's side. But in all fairness, Totti was 40 years old. I mean, what did he expect? And he's really counting those. Like, every time he gets subbed, he's like, oh, and then there's a penalty 10 minutes later. And that would have been me. Oh, imagine that me scoring a penalty then. Like, it's like, you scored 252 goals, bruv. Just let it go.
His cup overfloweth at this stage, surely.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's a shame he couldn't add a second title there, because his trophy cabinet was a little bit bare. But still, once Scudetto had one World Cup, that's pretty good, isn't it?
Like you say, it would have been better if he would managed to go on a high, win the league one more time. But all things considered, he could have went off to Real Madrid. He could have won, the Ballon d'Or, as he seems to say, was a given if he went to Real Madrid. But I think the path he went down was the right path. I think that guy is immortal in Rome. And it's not it's not Southampton, it's Rome.
I mean, that is just the comparison, isn't it? It's one thing like, oh, that man will never have to buy a drink in Southampton ever again. Whereas I don't even think that's true anymore, Lettis, because he turned into such a weirdo. Whereas Totti, yeah, the king of Rome, man. I mean, that's... yeah, absolutely. He played his career a blinder.
Absolutely.
This is how he finishes the book. And I think this is the corniest end to any book we've read. All I need is a remote control to arrange a nice journey back in time. But I need to take Christian, his son, to a good eye doctor. The other evening, he caught me on the sofa whilst I was watching an old goal compilation from the first Zeman era, and he asked me if I was crying. What an idea. A trivial allergy. I'd got a cold, and then a bug had flown in my eye. He was crying, and he did spit, and he did have an affair, and he did kick Balotelli. Yeah. Overall, great footballer, beautiful, beautiful man. Yeah, I wish I was Totti. I wish I was. Like, I look at Garincha. I don't want to be Garincha. Like, his life was an absolute disaster time, wasn't it? But like Totti, I don't know. What a beautiful, beautiful career.
Yeah, that man has lived a life. He really has.
He lived it on his terms, and he achieved, and the achievements he made mean more because they did it with his team.
Yeah, and as he said, if you play for Juventus, you expect to win the league 3, 4, 5 times or whatever. That Roma Scudetto, I presume, is legendary for the people of Rome, and it means a whole pile to them. So yeah, maybe there is more value in a single Roma title than in 2 or 3 Juve ones.
Yeah, absolutely, and certainly there is for him. So yeah, overall it's a good book. I mean, again, it doesn't jump around because we're just following a man's career at the same club year after year. But I know more about him, and I like him.
It wasn't a very funny book.
No, it wasn't funny. It wasn't funny at all. I think, I did laugh out loud at one bit when he was saying he didn't spit, and then I went to the next chapter, and he was saying like Christian Poulsen is a terrible man. That made me laugh. Like, I wouldn't spit at him, but it is awful. And if I did spit at him, which I didn't, but I did, he would have deserved it. I didn't do it, but I did because the video showed. But I would never do that.
So how many imaginary spits do you give this book?
Yeah, 3.5 spits out of 5, 7 out of 10 book. That seems fair.
Yeah, I could probably give it that as well. I was 3.5. Go on. I'd give it 3.5 spits just because Poulsen was such a prick.
Yeah, absolutely. Who wouldn't spit at him? Who wouldn't spit at standing on your toes? Thank you very much for joining us for Gladiator, the Totti story here on the Adamola Bookman podcast. We're staying in Italy for our next podcast. We're doing Gaza in Italy by Daniel Story. So thanks again. Thank you, Johnny.
Thank you very much. Grazie mille.
Grazie mille.
Yeah. All right. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers. Next time.
Let your body spin like there is nothing in life but dancing.